Also be respectful of the people that can't upgrade. Some folks simply can't upgrade because they have corporate policies. Maybe they're still using IE6, or IE7. Some companies that I've taught at, when I go teach on site, are still using older versions of the browsers because their corporate policy doesn't allow them to be upgraded to IE9. Or, heaven forbid, like at the bottom there, what if they're still running Windows XP? One of the nasty features of Windows XP is the fact that it will not allow you to upgrade Internet Explorer past version 8. If you want IE9, you have to get up to at least Vista and newer. There's a neat little site here, and I've got the web address right here on the screen, marketshare.hitslink.com. This is a new screenshot that I'm looking at. You can see the red arrow I've got on the screen. It's pointing to the March 2012. That's when I actually ran this survey. And on the left side, you can see I've circled the browser share. And it shows you what percentage of the browsers are currently being used today because they've actually done surveys on this stuff. Very cool. Then Market Share does this. Notice they have desktop as well as mobile and tablet. So if you're interested more in what the mobile development world is using, maybe you have mobile devices, maybe you're developing for mobile devices, that might be more important to you. What I like is down below, you can see the percentage of the different versions of the browsers. I can see Firefox 10 is at 8%, and I can see that Chrome 17 is at 15%. What's kind of sad is where it shows Internet Explorer 8 is still at 26%, much higher than IE9. And the real reason we don't have that penetration of IE9 is because those folks can't do it. Those are probably folks still running Windows XP. I can only imagine. Now, which browsers support it? So we just talked about which browsers are most popular, but which ones actually support some of the features? Well, there's different sites out there that can help you with this. I like this site. This is called Html5 Test, and it actually scores all of the different browsers based on their capabilities. You can see I got a red arrow pointing at a line there. It makes its best guess as to what browser I'm currently running at, and it was able to determine I was running IE9 on Windows 7. So, okay, based on that, it said I have 138 of the 500 total points. If my browser got 500 points, that means I have all the CSS and HTML5 features. Apparently, this browser doesn't exactly come up to that par by any means. Anybody can go to this site with any browser, and what it does is it figures out which browser you have, and it actually tells you the result of your test. Earlier versions of this site actually would go ahead and ping every part of your browser to determine the score. But lately, it seems like they just already know the answer if they figured out which browser you're using. Please take a look at the other tab there where it says Other Browsers, and you can find who's leading the pack. For example, usually it's Google Chrome and Opera and Maxthon. Maxthon. Maybe you've never heard of this browser. I wouldn't blame you if you haven't. Maxthon can actually score higher than any of the other browsers because it includes more than one rendering engine. It includes the Internet Explorer rendering engine as well as the WebKit rendering engine that's used by both Apple Safari and Google Chrome. So if I went to HTML5 Test with the Maxthon browser, it says I'm getting 425 points and 15 bonus out of a total of 500. And it guesses that I'm using Maxthon on Windows 7, and I'll check the box just to confirm. And if I scroll down, I can see how this browser is faring on all these different HTML5 types. You'll notice on the video, as well as the audio, it's supporting all the formats. Again, that's the advantage of having multiple rendering engines compiled in. I can also see what it's supporting for elements, and for forms, it looks like it needs a little work on some of those input types, right? We were talking about input type equals email, URL, telephone, date, month. The date and month, of course, they actually pop up a calendar. It's pretty sweet. You can choose one of those. And user interaction. And you can see how it's scored on some of these other features. Like I can go ahead and copy this, close this browser, and bring up a different one like Opera. And do the exact same thing. And with Opera, let's see the score. I got 338. I'm running Opera on Windows 7. So I got 338. Now, if I take a look at this Other Browsers tab like I recommended, it's showing me who does have the first place. Chrome 18 is a runner-up at 400. Upcoming Chrome Canary is going up by 3 points. And we can see the different browsers that are in the lead here. And sadly, Internet Explorer, allow access, Internet Explorer is way down here at 138. But hey, I've got high expectations for IE10. Like I said, with Windows 8, IE10 works pretty slick. I'm impressed with it so far. A lot of features. It's a lot higher with IE10. You can also take a look at what tablets are supporting, as well as mobile. So these are just some other choices that we have. Here's development and beta. Go back to desktop browser. Development and beta. IE10 has got a score of 316. So I've been playing around with Windows 8. It's, when you start a new operating system like Windows 8, it's a little bit frustrating. For example, there's no X in the corner. When you want to close something, you have to grab it at the top and bring it all the way down, and then it disappears. And the other big hint I can tell anybody who wants to play around with Windows 8 is just hover your mouse in each of the four corners. It seems like menus will pop up all of a sudden, and you'll have more choices. It's not obvious by any means, but when you're working in Windows 8, you're like, how do I do this? How do I do that? Well, hover over the four corners or right-click and see what choices come up. Let's go back into our presentation. Tools for development. So we talked a little bit about the HTML standards. We're going to get into more detail of this, obviously. But let's talk about the tools that you can use. Now, HTML5 and CSS3, ultimately, all we're editing is text files, right? So we can basically use any text editor we want. Hey, Notepad++ is free. Go ahead and use that, right? If you want to use Notepad++ or TextPad or UltraEdit or any of your favorite text editors, or maybe you have a favorite HTML editor, all of those are just fine. Some of these editors are actually free, and some of these are going to cost you some greenbacks. For example, if you want to go out and use Dreamweaver from Adobe or the Creative Suite, Web Creative Suite, that's going to cost a little bit more moolah, but it's going to give you more support for integrating jQuery and the HTML5 tags and CSS3. There are some online Wysiwyg editors. I talked to a person from the morning session who actually likes to use the first one I've got listed here, the Makeda web editor. And what these editors do is if you just need to do a little bit of HTML5 but you don't want to have to install a tool, all you got to do is navigate to these sites, and the actual page itself is an HTML5 editor that allows you to go ahead and make changes to it, see the results instantaneously right in the browser, and then you can go ahead and copy-paste it into your page. They'll give you a warning if you try to do any of these editors in Internet Explorer, because you're basically saying you're using a browser that doesn't support the HTML5 features. So try again with a different browser. So I would recommend you probably open them up in Google Chrome or maybe Opera or one of the other ones, because you'll want to take advantage of the newer HTML5 features. So you can see we've got some browsers here, the Aloha editor, Mercury, there's a Rendera, and then there's Blue Griffin, which is also downloadable and installable. Now, these are the Wysiwyg editors, and some parts of them will actually act as a CMS editing page. In other words, you can actually download this editor from their page, because that's all it is, it's just text, and you can include it in your CMS system. If you have a content management system on your own site, you can include that. So the editors that we have available to us, if you're using why is somebody continuing to, Costandino was requesting control, and I'm not going to share control here. Anyways, for Windows, you can go ahead and download Coffee Cup. I just bring this up because it's a great free HTML5 editor. This is what Coffee Cup looks like. I'll just go ahead and fire it up here. This is Coffee Cup. It's a free editor. Of course, they have the one that they want you to fork over the money for, but hey, that's cool too. It's a nice editor. It's got opening and closing tags, and there's a free version of this that you can use for HTML5. And it even has ways to connect to your projects, organize your documents or your websites. Maybe you need to connect to an FTP server. We can do all of that right from this free editor, which is called Coffee Cup at coffeecup.com. This is one of them that's available to us. Another one, if you have a Windows operating system, is Aptana Studio. Aptana offers two different choices here for you. Aptana Studio can be the one that you download and install locally. You get a full-blown HTML5 editor right on your system, and it too can work like Coffee Cup, except the difference with Aptana is there is no purchase version. It's completely 100% free. It's under the GNU license, and it's a pretty sweet editor. I've had some students who, apparently my firewall is freaking, I've had some students in my class when I've taught HTML5 in the past, because I like to install different editors, they actually like this editor quite a bit. So I like to use this one because it's really quick and easy to go ahead and work with your markup and then go ahead and preview it right away. Aptana, though, has a free plugin for you Java developers. Maybe you love working with Eclipse. Maybe you're working with Java EE for developers or the JavaScript Web Developers Edition. All you'll need to do is go to the Help menu and choose Install Software, and you'll put in this web URL, and you can install this special Eclipse plugin, which will give you excellent support for HTML5. Now, technically, I think it was the Galileo edition of Eclipse, starting with the letter G, of course, that first started giving support for HTML5, and now we're up to Indigo right now, which is giving even better support. But know that this plugin can be helpful as well. It'll actually use something called HTML5 Boilerplate code to get you started with some great templates. So if you want to check out the free Eclipse plugin that's available from Aptana, that plugs in really nice with Eclipse for you Java developers. Admittedly, I'm coming from the Microsoft background. I wanted this class to address everybody's needs for Java or .NET or any other technology.